and we shouldn't be voting any out. And so first bill we're going to do today is House Committee Substitute for House Bill 1746 with Representative O'Donnell. Would you come forward and present your bill? No votes. Yeah, right now we do.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, State Representative Michael O'Donnell. I represent the 95th District, which is the southernmost portion of St. Louis County. This bill should be very familiar to you all. You spent 3 days on it last session. Unfortunately, it was the last 3 days of session. This was House Bill, Senate Bill 275 that died on the floor at the end of session last year. We've added a few things and really not changed other than the few additions. So I'll just kind of go through briefly what's in the bill. First off, we've got property taxation of solar. This has to do with...
Representative O'Donnell, will you hang on just 1 second? Let me take a roll call so we get a quorum established.
Roger that.
Michelle, call the roll.
Senator Searpoy.
Here.
Fitzwater. Bean. Bernsketter. Esslinger. May. Here. McCreery. Here. Mosley. Thompson Rader. Trent.
We have a quorum. Go ahead, Mike. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this resolves the property taxation of solar that was created prior to August 9th, 2022. Also, this contains property tax assessment methodology for water and gas pipelines. Has to do with County Board of Trustees and Sewer District. It gives them a compensation of $100, up to $100 per meeting. Also has to do with renewable natural gas, which I believe you guys recently heard over here, and we heard over and got an affirmative vote in the House. Also having to do with water utility acquisition, the larger water utilities acquiring smaller utilities, just expediting the PSC process. A lot of these water utilities that are being absorbed tend to be in distress, and so this helps to expedite that. We've also got, let's see here, the PISA adjustments for natural gas generation. Also, the adjustment of water and sewer with SERA regulations that having to do with the combination, combining, or if you've got a water and sewer customer base that's at least 8,000. Right now it's currently 8,000 water and 8,000 sewer. This would allow smaller utilities to use with SERA if they have a combined water and sewer customer base of 8,000. The natural gas economic development incentive rate, which is similar to what we passed with securitization for the power folks. PSC contracting for regarding to securitization. So it has to do with hiring, the PSC hiring financial advisors for a securitization rate case. It allows them to do that more quickly than the OA process. It requires them to put policies and procedures in place and make it public should demonstrate that they're actually following their policies and procedure and not just hiring somebody's uncle to do the job. Let's see here. We've got some workforce development investment recovery for electric, gas, and water IOUs, and then the water hydrant testing, which puts our water hydrant testing in the state on par with national testing. And then another one that was added on the House floor removes the sunset date on small wireless facilities, which is currently set to expire January 1st of 2025. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Senator McCreery.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Senator.
I've got some specific questions, but I might wait for some of the witnesses. But I have a question about the discounted gas rates. We have seen evidence of this being shopped around in several other states. Is there a specific company that you know of that's pushing for that? Like it just seems like a coincidence. It's more than a coincidence, I would think.
I'm not familiar with any of what you're referring to. I always have kind of taken it. and you may disagree, I liked what we did with the electric utilities with allowing and incentivizing, finding some other incentives for big corporations to locate here. And I just saw this as another way to do that in the utility space, just on the natural gas side. I'm not familiar with a company pushing it.
It's very specific, projected to be at least 270,000 CCFs annually. So I just wondered if you had any sense of
Yeah, I don't.
what's going on with that. Was that your underlying bill, or was that somebody else's on the House side?
On that, I'm trying to remember. It was in this bill last year, I believe.
Okay.
So that's how I ended up with it.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Seeing none. How many people want to testify in favor of this bill? How many in opposition? Okay. We're going to start going back and forth. But please remember that most of this bill we've heard already is as part of 740. So if you're commenting on something that's not unique to this bill, keep your comments as brief as possible. I appreciate that. First person in favor, please come forward. Leave your witness form at the table and let us know who you are.
Chairman David Winton here on behalf of Liberty Utilities and Summit Utilities. Want to go on record in support of the legislation 1746. Also, just in response to Senator McCreary's question on the EDR rate, the economic development rate, what we tried to do, and this bill has been around for a couple of years, Representative Keithley was the primary sponsor in the House last year. Senator Fitzwater was the Senate sponsor in the Senate. The reason those numbers are in there on the CCF is we try to mirror the electric, so to have a large enough additional load on the system where it made sense. And just to very quickly go through kind of what that does, if there is an opportunity to expand gas use on the line, this gives an opportunity for a company to come in. If they've already secured some level of economic incentives from the local community, they then can talk to the utility about applying a 25% discount for up to 4 years. There is an automatic requirement that can have no additional impact on the consumer because this would be on the incremental change in the incremental cost. So that discount can't be larger than that discount can't create any kind of additional cost or burden on the consumer based on the way the bill is written and based on what the PSC does. So to my knowledge, there's no effort nationwide to do this. That's entirely possible this is happening. We came to the legislature 2 years ago because it works well on electric, and we wanted to adapt that to gas.
Give me an idea of the customers that use that kind of volume.
These would be large customers. So like Independence Day is a great example in Lebanon, Missouri. They make all the barrels for wine across the world, and they burn a lot of gas. And so whenever they put an additional plant on, so they have plants, I think they have plants now in Missouri, and I think they also have a plant in either Kentucky or Tennessee. And so when they choose to build another plant or expand their plant, they have options. We'd like them to stay in Missouri when they do that. This gives us an opportunity for the additional load that's going to go on the system to say.
But what % of customers use that kind of volume today?
It would be small.
Just
it
the
would
very
be
top
larger
users?
industrial
Okay,
customers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, David. Next person, I'm sorry, speaking in opposition, please come forward. Brokenhearted.
Good morning, John Kaufman with the Consumers Council of Missouri. We are very much opposed to this omnibus bill, and also am turning in a form from the Missouri Industrial Energy Consumers. They're held up at the Public Service Commission today. They're also opposed to it. I think the biggest rate impact in here is the PISA portion for the electric rates, expanding the current PISA law, which has already led to a nearly 10% increase in rates. This would, the Missouri Industrial Energy Consumers estimate that the PISA portion in this bill would lead to 10 to 15% increase in your constituents' electric rates already. Just for a minute on the issue just discussed, the $270,000 special deal for the big customers that will indeed raise other rates. It will increase the rates for residential, small business, and light commercial customers. I do not agree in the way the wording I believe the wording is very specifically designed to pass those costs on and have residential and small business customers subsidize it, as if several other provisions in here all seem to roll down as well. But I think several things in here are rate increases, so you'll be voting for a rate increase for your constituents in an election year. The biggest, of course, being the PISA. So I'll just leave it at that. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. Questions for this witness? Senator McCreery.
Thank you. There was a little bit of chaos back here, so I didn't get to hear all of your testimony. Someone was trying to steal my books. So I heard, so on the gas, the economic development gas rate, the reason it has more of an impact on our constituents and on small business is because of why?
Well, it's just the way it's worded. I mean, it's providing a discount to those customers, and those costs are then added back into the overall revenue requirement. So it's designed to have other customers subsidize whoever this mystery business is.
Okay.
I have no idea who it is. In fact, the only gas customers that I'm aware of that use that much don't even go through the LDC, don't even go through like the Spires, and they buy directly from the pipeline. So this would be a very unusual situation. I would also note that adding new adding new load can sometimes lead to an overall benefit for other customers, such as in the Noranda situation from years ago. But it's a different dynamic on the gas system than on the electric side, and this is not designed to help other gas customers.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next person in favor, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That had premature testimony there. Ray McCarty from Associated Industries, Missouri, want to go on record in support of this. We support the gas volume discounts, not because of any particular member, but because we think we support the philosophy overall. There's also language in there, as I understand it, that prevents other ratepayers from having to subsidize this. So I'd point that out. We're also very supportive of the pipeline depreciation part of this bill. This was in the bill last year also. This just tries to straighten out something that some of the counties are recognizing, others are not, and this makes sure that pipelines are entitled to depreciation. And also, then I wanted to answer any questions you might have on the sales tax exemption for transmission and distribution. Right now, electric companies are exempt on everything they use for generation, to generate the electricity. There's an old case that said that transmission and distribution does not qualify for that same exemption. And I think we vetted this pretty well last year in Senate Bill 275. But if in case you had questions, I wanted to answer them. This just extends that to all the transmission and distribution equipment that they would buy that would flow through to rates and be a savings for ratepayers. And in fact, in the Senate last year, you added a clause that ensured that would happen, although it stands to reason. You can only recover in rates what you spend. If you don't spend it, there's nothing to recover. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Next in opposition, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Tim Opitz, and I represent businesses, manufacturers, commercial industrial customers who are interested in utility rates and policies through the Midwest Energy Consumers Group. Today, I'm appearing on behalf of MECG to share my observations about two specific provisions in this bill. Primarily, I have concerns with the plant and service accounting changes. First, I want to note that the dates of the underlying legislation are still in effect, and the utility and any utility electing this special accounting treatment can still use that deferral until 2028. And thereafter, the utility can seek an additional 5 years for this special treatment if it can demonstrate to the Missouri Public Service Commission that it's still providing value to customers. Second, for certain investments, this bill moves the special treatment from 85% to 90% deferral. This essentially guarantees that the utility will recover additional costs without any apparent reason. As I understand, our Missouri utility's ability to attract capital to make investments remains strong, so I don't see a need for this increase in the deferral percentage and oppose it at this time, especially because we already have plant and service accounting in effect. Third, the bill expands the definition of qualifying plant to include new generation. Extending this special treatment to new generation will lead to increased rates and will reduce the incentive to manage costs between rate cases. I think it's important to point out whenever we isolate a specific cost, such as adding plant, it throws off the balance between the utility and the customers that are served by that utility. There may be circumstances where that kind of approach and adjusting that balance is needed, but once the issues are addressed, we need to restore that balance and get back to looking at all of the relevant factors, basically both sides of the ledger, when we're setting rates for that customers will ultimately pay. And a secondary and smaller concern I have with this bill is the language on the renewable natural gas provisions. There's a portion in there that says shall be deemed prudent, and without commenting on the program itself or the policy for pursuing it, I would encourage this committee to avoid limiting the Public Service Commission's ability to examine the prudence of how a utility expends costs or how it manages a project. Even if the project is a good idea, how the utility manages those costs or manages the project, I think should still be subject to review. I hope the utility agrees, but it may be a drafting error there. In conclusion, I urge you to reject the extension of the PISA updates, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next in favor, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Fred Dreiling today, registered lobbyist for City Utilities of Springfield and the Missouri Association of Municipal Utilities, and we would like to go on record in support of House Bill 1746, specifically the fire hydrant testing and the removal of the sunset on small cell. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent testimony. Next in opposition.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Michael Berg, and I'm testifying against House Bill 1746 on behalf of the Missouri Sierra Club, and we specifically oppose Section 386.895 regarding the so-called renewable natural gas utility program. And there's multiple people testified against this in committee before. It was Senate Bill 829. So to reiterate the problem, methane gas is a driver of climate change and a pollutant, and this would incentivize the production of more methane gas, and the positives of collecting the gas do not outweigh the negatives of the greater pollution caused by encouraging larger herd sizes and larger productions of methane. We believe that such a program's, the gas would be costly, and its main effect would just be to give PR material for the factory farm industry and the gas industry, methane gas industry.
Thank you. Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next in favor, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Jay Hahn on behalf of Strata Solar. We'd like to go on the record in support of House Bill 1746, specifically page 1 through 5, the inclusion of property tax on solar grandfathering. This provision last year did successfully make it into a previous version of the bill. It was a little bit more broad. The House took a lot of time, effort, and energy to narrow that language down to apply only to solar projects built between the years of 2013 through August of 2022, and that's dubbed the grandfathering provision. The company that we represent does operate a just shy of 5 megawatt project outside of Springfield, Missouri, and this grandfathering language is desperately needed to keep this project alive and flowing electrons. If we are unable to move forward with some sort of statutory change on property tax, it is likely that this solar installation will go bankrupt due to how it was constructed, when it was constructed, and then tax treatment at the time. But be happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any commercial solar clients now that that have something in production. They aren't done with the, what's that called, the county agreement where they pay taxes off that. You have anybody that's dealing with assessors right now since the court ruling?
Yes, strata in particular. So there's different iterations, of course, of folks that are affected by solar property tax. Those that were built prior to the Supreme Court case in flowing electrons, which is what this language specifically addressed. Those that were in the process of contracting, trying to build out the projects, those projects may or may not yet be built. And of course, those that are further down the line trying to plan out those projects.
But the ones that are there, do you have any that are facing assessors now and tax bills?
Yes, so Strata, the 4.9 megawatt project, does have outstanding tax bills that they currently have on hand. I haven't been shared that, but they do tell me that the tax liability on that project, of course, when they built it under the law of the land, it was 0% tax. It's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that would exceed their profit margins.
Okay. Come and talk to me in my office if you
Yeah.
would about that. Thank
Happy
you.
to.
Any questions for this witness? All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, in opposition, please come forward. Please leave your witness form and tell us who you are.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dinoff, State Public Advocate, and I'm highly opposed to to HCS House Bill 1746. I testified against it in January against the House, and I'm here to testify against it at the Senate committee level. This is a huge bill. It's against Missouri consumers and Missouri utility users, and it's for big utility profits. Look at the big, highly paid lobbyists that are in this room. You probably have hundreds of thousands of dollars of fees being paid by different big utility companies across Missouri. The question I ask you as elected officials is, who's in charge here in this room? Is it 6 million Missourians, or is it the big lobbyists that talk to you about big utility companies and what's good for them? You need to find out and decipher who's right, who's wrong, what's good for Missouri as a whole, and not what's good for the lobbyists in terms of the huge, exorbitant bonuses that they will receive if this bill passes by the big utility companies across Missouri. There are 60 different areas shoved into one big bill, and it's totally unfair to Missouri residents. I've asked you and testified before you time and time again, and asked the state auditor and Missouri Attorney General, when are you going to finally investigate Public Supply Water District Number 2 of St. Charles County, who also owns and operates with their assets East Central Water and Sewer Authority? They pay themselves a base salary of $1,800 per meeting, which they gave themselves a $300 pay raise in January of this year. In addition to that, they have catered meals, pay themselves $100 for an open meeting.
Artie, that has nothing to do with this bill. Do you have any more testimony on this bill?
It does, because you talk about giving stipends of $100 per meeting to county commissions and also to sewer districts. So it's very key on, is right here in section, I can find it right here where it talks about it.
This won't impact that at all.
Talks about County Board of Trustees compensation. The bill sets the rate of compensation for members of the County Board of Trustees. Each trustee of the board may receive an attendance fee not to exceed $100. In this case, and also you talk about the Sewer District Board of Trustees compensation, section 204.610 of the revised state statute, which says that a maximum fee of $100 per meeting. In this case, commissioners of St. Charles County of the Water and Sewer District are paying themselves over $25,000 in salary for a meeting that lasts 30 to 45 minutes. And I ask you to hold a hearing and get to the bottom of it, because they're ripping off taxpayers of St. Charles County. So just to sum up my testimony, when will there be an investigation into this wrongdoing and taking advantage of consumers? When will this committee hold an evidentiary hearing? And when will you refer this item to the Missouri State Auditor and the Missouri Attorney General? Who's in charge here? Missouri citizens or big utility companies? I am highly against HB 746, and I ask you to defeat this huge bill that does nothing for Missouri consumers, but it's all in the favor of big utilities of Missouri. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you. Next in favor, please come forward.
Is that better? I wanted to testify quickly, and I think you've heard this before, on the standardization of taxation on gas and water assets. This simply would require all the counties in the state to follow the same methodology on taxing a piece of pipe that was put in 2017. We do not have regional rates, so if you sit in St. Louis County and your tax rates are lower than St. Genevieve County, your customers are subsidizing St. Genevieve County rates. And we just think it makes a lot of sense to do that. I will also add that of all the consumer advocates that come up here that talk about raising and rising gas rates and utility rates, none of them have talked about the fact that this would help cap and hold down gas rates because of the inflation and the taxation. So I'm interested to know why that conversation hasn't taken place among the so-called consumer advocates. The other part of this is on the renewable natural gas side. This was passed several years ago, and the intention of the bill, this was a fix of 3 words to clarify how the commission would treat the renewable natural gas versus how the customers could opt in and out. And I would say this: it was never intended to remove any oversight of the Public Service Commission on reasonable, prudent, or deemed prudent language. And if it is, we need to fix that. We know that it's not going to fly here. On the third provision here, I want to testify in favor of is the gas economic development stuff. I will say this: I am not aware of any prospective customer that's looking at Missouri that would quickly take advantage of this rate. If you look at how this would mechanically work for a gas customer, Mr. Kaufman is correct. Most of those customers buy their own gas. We are the Uber driver. We pick the gas up at the end of the city gate, so to speak, and we deliver it. This provision would maybe affect 20% of that bill. So you would be giving a discount of 25% on 20% of the throughput of that bill, not on the customer charge, not on the gas that they buy. So in effect, it's not a 25% discount on the bill. It's 25% of about 20%. I just want to make that clear. I'd be happy to explain that to anybody later at any time. And it is designed to do no harm to existing customers. One final point I would like to make: when you look at electric discounted rates versus gas, we are flowing gas through a pipe. Right? If it has capacity, one could argue, what is the additional cost that you're adhering? You don't give it to a new customer for free. I'm not projecting that. But you're also looking at, until that pipe is fully utilized, any additional customer helps pay for that pipe, through throughput. So I just wanted to point that out. It's a little bit different because we don't generate the gas. This is wellhead gas. One more final thing, Mr. Chairman. On renewable natural gas, this market has become really ripe since we started this conversation. There are renewable energy credits coming into the state of Missouri from other jurisdictions that make this product, that what we're trying to do with landfill gas, what we're trying to do with agricultural waste, what we're trying to do with wastewater, extremely competitive, if not below really cheap market rates because of these renewable energy credits. And I can unwind that for anybody that wants me to come in and talk about it. That was not the case when we started talking about renewable energy. But right now, it is ripe for the gas companies to take advantage of this particular provision. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions for this witness? Senator McCreery.
So I'm trying to understand what you were saying on the economic development for gas customers. The way I'm reading on page 32, lines 53 to 55, the way I'm reading the impact of the discount for a big user on the rest of the customer classes is it does say, the impact of the discounts provided for by this section shall be allocated to all the Gas Corp's customer classes, including the classes with customers that qualify for discounts. So the discount for a big user is made up for on the backs of other customers. At least that's the way I'm reading that.
I was looking at line 38 to 40, and I thought it clarified that. And I would admit, the way it's drafted is a little bit misleading to me. If there's
Yeah,
something we
I
can
mean,
fix, we can do that.
You know, I'm no utility lobbyist, but to me, the way I read that is it looks like it's going to be spread out on like our constituents. So that's what I want to make sure. I want to make sure that a residential user is not paying additional just so that we could lure and get a gas customer to use more gas, or to lure somebody using more gas here.
Yeah, and I understand, and traditionally, those type of programs, that's how that would work. If you had a low-income provision that allowed customers that meet that classification a lower rate, it would be picked up in the pie, so to speak, of rate recovery. But again, on a pipeline throughput, when you're looking at gas flow on our system, one can argue, really, what is the incremental cost to flow gas when you still have capacity? That's probably another discussion to have.
I'd love to have that discussion.
Yeah, I as opposed to having to generate more gas, that's not what we do.
Yeah, no, I get that. And, you know, my concern about this is not directed at Spire as much as everything we deal with on this committee, which is there's nobody, so there are companies that can hire lobbyists to protect them and get special carve-outs in legislation, and I've seen that over my decade here. But residential people don't have, there's nobody here to like protect them from these kinds of things. So if we want to put some kind of protection in for residential consumers, I would be fine with that, you know, but there's nobody advocating for carve-outs for residential. But we do, and I have seen carve-outs for big corporate users from things, including, you know, in the last 10 years. So that's all I'm saying, is I want to make sure we're protecting the residential users.
Understand,
So,
thank you.
Thank you.
And I haven't done a side-by-side compare, so I don't know if the Senate bill language is different than the House language. So
Yeah, I haven't either.
We'll know more about that in a few days. Any other questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you, Larry. Is anybody else in opposition? Please come forward. How many more in opposition? Okay. You may be the final act.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is still Jay Hardenbrook, and I am still the Advocacy Director for AARP here in the state of Missouri, a membership organization with over 700,000 members in the state of Missouri alone. As many of the supporters have said, I would like to target my opposition to one specific part of this legislation, that being the Plant in Service Accounting, or PISA, section of this legislation. When it passed the first time and was specifically not for coal, natural gas, or nuclear, we warned that that would raise rates by 10%. It has already. Expanding this to natural gas and changing the deferral up to 100% will continue to raise rates on consumers. We already know that there will be gas plants built. They are planning on building them anyways. This doesn't incentivize any new action. Really, all it does is take more dollars out of consumers' pockets, whether that's residential consumers, industrial consumers, or any other sort of consumers who buy electricity. It will increase their rates. We estimate now that that'll be another 10 to 15%. The number one cause of homelessness among seniors and disabled veterans is unpaid utility bills. You will not be able to get housing assistance if you have unpaid utility bills. So it is a very dangerous thing for our members to continue raising electric rates at the rate that we have in the state of Missouri. We used to keep them pretty low. But over the last few years, we've made a lot of changes that have increased rates very quickly. This will continue to raise rates on consumers, especially older consumers, and we would urge you to not pass that section of this legislation.
I'm just curious, because this piece of thing is really just applying it to gas turbines.
Right.
And your argument is they're going to probably install a few gas turbines. And that is going to raise overall rates by 15%. I don't see how that's possible. Do you have numbers on that? Do you have a sheet showing those numbers break
we can,
down?
Yeah, we can get those for you.
I'd like to see those.
Yep,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Questions for this witness? I will. I'll make sure everybody gets that. I'm sorry. It's not just for me.
Yeah,
Anybody
everybody
else
on the
have
committee,
questions?
yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Thank you for your testimony.
Yes, thank you so much.
Next, in favor? I think that's all we have left.
Members of the committee, Mr. Chairman, my name is Kevin Gunn. I'm the Vice President of State and Federal Regulatory Policy for Evergy, and I'm actually speaking in favor specifically of the PISA provision, and I want to kind of talk about what it does and what it doesn't do. I quite honestly have no idea where the 10 to 15%, the 10% since PISA has gone into effect, or the 10 to 15% in the future is coming from. Since 2017, Evergy, Missouri, its total rate increases have been about 1%, and that's compared to about regional rates to about 11%. We did a bill impact study that we gave to Senator McCreery that I can give to everybody else. For it turns out it's about $1 a month on a typical residential bill of $110. Now, that's assuming that it all goes into rates directly, but that's not how it works. What PISA does is it's an accounting measure. So it puts depreciation on a spreadsheet. So until a rate case, there is zero impact on a bill. So the depreciation goes into a spreadsheet, and then it is essentially taken with all other factors in a rate case. So it's quite frankly, unless you parse out exactly where the Public Service Commission came in with disallowances and increases and ROE adjustments or capital structure adjustments, it's almost actually impossible to attribute a specific increase to PISA in general, and certainly not 10%, and certainly not a projected 10 to 15% increase. It's a regulatory asset, and the 90 or 10%, that 10% is real. It means that money does not get a return on it, goes away. We lose that money and are not able to recover it. So, but are there benefits to PISA? There absolutely are. The PISA is one of the bare minimum mechanisms that you're seeing across the country. It is absolutely true that not many states have PISA for gas generation. It's because they have more advanced rate-making principles. They have construction work in progress. They have future test year. They have formula rates, all of which have a much greater impact on consumer bills than PISA does. But PISA can help attract industrial load. It incentivizes people to build natural gas generation that will allow industrial consumers to come into the state. Kansas, for example, has just passed PISA and construction work in progress. And they're doing that in order to meet the load and to help draw even more advanced manufacturing and more industrial load into the state. What that does for residential consumers is it lowers fixed costs. There's a London School of Economics study out there that was used in front of the Kansas legislature a couple years ago that demonstrates that the best way to lower rates is to add industrial load, because by pure math, the more people you have and you spread out those fixed costs, the lower the rates come in, and that's really the best way to keep rates stable, is to attract large industrial load. Even though that industrial load might be paying a rate lower than the residentials, they're still paying for the fixed cost, which will lower that. It lowers the cost of capital, so we can get money cheaper. Yes, we are competing strongly with folks for capital, but when you get to the top of the list and have cheaper capital, because you have some of these mechanisms in place, can help you build. So. I think that with Kansas passing PISA for non-generation and equipped for generation, Missouri is in danger of not being able to compete for some of these larger industrial load and not getting all the benefits. So while you might get some of the megawatts if a plant is built in Kansas for reliability purposes, you're not necessarily going to get property taxes or the large jobs or the other ancillary benefits that come from having large industrial load or advanced manufacturing centered in your particular state. So I'm more than happy to answer questions. We can certainly get you the analysis that we've done on those rate impacts, and happy to share that as well.
Thank you. Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you, Kevin. Next in favor, please come forward.
Okay, sorry. Okay. So I will repeat myself, which is probably not okay for everybody in here, but Ken Franklin, Missouri American Water. We are in support of this bill, particularly for the water acquisition language and also the assessment of the gas and water property tax. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Next in favor, please come forward.
Chairman and committee members, my name is Warren Wood. I'm an engineer, and I'm still with Ameren, Missouri. This committee has heard these issues multiple times at this point. I will keep my comments very short. Missouri's electric grid needs dispatchable electric generation plants for two key reasons. One, the Midwest and Missouri need more capacity to reliably serve customers during extreme hot and cold weather. And we're seeing an unprecedented number of large customers looking at locating to Missouri. We're seeing this really nationally, but here in Missouri, especially with our low electric rates. We do not have the electric capacity to serve all these new customers. It will hurt our competitiveness in attracting new jobs and economic development to the state. To meet these challenges, I encourage the committee to support the generation support provisions from Senator Black's Senate Bill 1422 that's in this bill. This legislation basically updates bills passed in recent years to accelerate grid modernization by adding natural gas generation plants to the list of qualifying investments. When these bills passed, several in 2018 and 2022, some people said rates would skyrocket. So I went back and looked at that. Well, our residential electric rates were about 17% below national and Midwest averages when these bills passed in 2018 and 2022. Our rates are now about 27% below national and Midwest averages. I will close with three key things this legislation does not do. It does not revise the 2.5% PISA cap impact on customer rates, require the PSC to approve these projects, or inhibit the PSC's ability to disallow imprudently incurred costs. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. Welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next in favor, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Ryan DeBoof. I represent the Missouri Solar Energy Industries Association. Wanted to go on the record on behalf of this association in support of the first provision in this bill, that is the grandfathering solar tax provision that Mr. Hahn addressed. We've had conversations for feels like a long time about the right solar tax property tax treatment for solar installations and a range of other issues around those solar installations. This provision doesn't deal with those issues. This provision deals with the very, very narrow situation of solar developments and other solar property that existed before the Supreme Court made the decision on the property taxes for solar, trying to address that for like I said, that very small number of situations. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next in favor, please come forward. How many more are in favor? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mark Rhodes. I appear on behalf of the Central States Water Resources. We are in favor of the bill. We are particularly...
Mark?
Yes.
Use the
Sorry.
microphone.
We are particularly interested in Section 393.320, which is the definition of water public utility and allows the combination of water and sewer customers. Happy to answer any questions.
For this witness? Seeing
Thank
none.
you.
Thank you, Mark. Next in favor, please come forward.
Good morning. Kara Corches on behalf of the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Just want to go on record in support again for the many times we've been here on different pieces of this bill. Happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Next in favor, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Rebecca Eichelberger with the Association of Missouri Electric Cooperatives. We wanted to go on record in support of the bill, specifically the provision that is the transmission and distribution equipment sales tax exemption.
Okay. Thank you. Questions for this witness? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Next in favor, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Tracy King here representing AT&T. We'd like to go on record in support of the bill, specifically the section dealing with the Small Cell Wireless Deployment Act, the sunset. That's very similar to Senator May's Senate Bill 1411, which you did vote out of this committee. It has to be addressed this year, so we ask for your support.
Thank you. Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you. Next in favor.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Amy Blunt on behalf of Meta Platforms. We're in support of the bill, particularly the ARB provision of the Advanced Renewable Buyer language that is in your Senate Bill 740. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions? Seeing none. Thank you. Anybody else in favor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, Scott Swain representing Clean Grid Alliance and Verizon, and want to go in favor and support of the bill.
Thank you. Questions for anybody? Thank you very much. Nobody else? That will conclude. I want to let the committee know that we will probably exec on this Thursday. We're looking for a room and a time now, so just so you're aware. We're going to make some changes in it. If you have any concerns or any questions, please come and talk to us. But this is a repeat of much we already done, so. Pardon me? I have another witness? I'm sorry, I forgot to do that, didn't I? Anybody for informational purposes? I apologize, I just slipped my mind.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Kenny Moore. I'm the Boone County Assessor. I'm here on behalf of the Missouri State Assessors Association. I want to talk briefly about 2 points to this bill. First would be the solar part of the bill. We know that this has been a contention since the Supreme Court ruling overturned the constitutionality of the exemption. I'm sorry. Okay, that better? No, there we go. Okay. Like I said, we want to talk a little bit about the solar part of it. We understand that the majority of the equipment that's listed in this bill is personal property. The contention that we have is the racking system that is permanently attached to the ground, such as a billboard. Billboards in the state of Missouri are considered real property, and that's how they're assessed and that's how they're taxed. So with that being said, we'd like to see that removed so it can continue to be assessed as real property if we could. The major part of the bill that we have contention with is the gas distribution valuation and using the 20-year depreciation table. As it is right now, if we used the depreciation table prescribed in this bill, Boone County would lose close to $90 million in appraised value. We would lose $29 million in assessed value. It would shift to over $2 million in tax liability from commercial to the residential classification, and individual taxpayers would have to bear the burden of that shift. At the same time, Cape Girardeau County would lose $32 to $44 million, which would be a $10 to $14 million as far as the assessed value they would lose. Using the 20-year depreciation table prescribes that this will allow natural gas, water, and sewer utility companies to take advantage of an accelerated depreciation on real property taxes. While this is a completely type of depreciation schedule that we use currently on any kind of residential type property. We don't even use this type of depreciation table on other utility companies, electric companies, for example. They're valued using the accumulated depreciation, not on a 20-year depreciation MACRS table. As far as the data that is provided to the counties, I have a company currently in my county that reports annually to me based on school districts that haven't been in existence since the 1960s. I have asked them time and time again, and I've gave them a shapefile, GIS shapefile, that would allow them, with polygons of each taxing jurisdiction in my county, it would allow them to tell me how many miles of line are in each one of those jurisdictions so I can get the taxes and evaluations appropriated correctly in those polygons. I've asked them time and time again for this. They say they can't give it to me. I have a hard time with that. Part of this bill, one of the statements in this bill says, if the taxpayers request that the assessor give them GIS data so they can do this, they're not going to ask the assessor for that. They're not giving it to us now. Why would they give it? You know, that needs to be changed to where they have to give that to us. We need to know where those lines are so we can get the taxes distributed to the correct jurisdictions. On top of that, lost my train of thought, sorry. On top of that, when they report their original cost to us, they're omitting part of their original cost. And that cost is called CAAC. That's contribution in aid of construction. When a new development goes in, 500 lot subdivision, whatever, the developer puts those lines in. At the end of that development, when the development's complete, those lines are turned over to the company. They don't report what those costs are. So they're underreporting what their actual costs are. While at the same time, those lines that they received are generating them income. I just don't see
That's
the
not,
fairness in.
there's nothing in this bill to address that, is there?
No.
Okay.
No. But what I'm stating is it's underreporting. They're underreporting their original cost.
Okay.
So anyway, I'd be happy to answer any additional questions.
Okay. I will say that if we're opposed to the bill, I think this testimony would be very similar to what you just did. So
Well,
I'm not sure the whole information thing is.
Well, I just wanted to inform people what the impact of this could
Okay.
be.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you. Anybody else for information purposes? That will conclude the hearing on House Bill 1746. Next, we have Senate Bill 1471. Senator McCreery, when you're ready.
Want me to start? Okay.
Senator, go ahead when you're ready.
Sure. Good morning. I'm Senator Tracy McCreery from Senate District 24, presenting Senate Bill 1471. What this bill does is it seeks to set up basic rules for water and sewer billing for landlords and building owners so that they can set up rules for water and sewer billing for the folks that rent or lease their property. A great example of that would be an apartment complex owner needs a way to bill the renters for water and sewer usage. So the basics of this legislation is there would be two billing methods that owners could use. They could use metered billing, or they could administer a mathematical billing program. One of the reasons I'm interested in this is I think that renters and people that lease property deserve to know how much they're paying for water, and if it's factored into their rent, they need to understand how that works. So in a way, this bill is about transparency between who the person is renting from. The bill also lays out a framework for owners being able to hire a third party to administer billing to their leasees, and then it also clearly states that the landlords and the building owners cannot be making money off of the sale of water which I think is also important to protect consumers. And another portion of the bill is that renters cannot have their water or sewer service discontinued if the landlord or the building owner fails to actually pay the bill. So it's a bit of protection for the renters as well. So, you know, they've been paying their water and sewer bills to the landlord, but the landlord's not taking that money and giving it to the company. So it would be a protection from discontinuation for folks. So I'm happy to go into more detail and take questions, but I've also got some witnesses here this morning.
Thank you. Questions for the senators? Senator Boone-Skinner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So can you give me an example of something that's happening now that you're trying to fix?
Right. So, like right now, there are some landlords that don't explain to their renters how they're charging for water usage. So, an example of, for me, my apartment here in Jefferson City, I don't have a water bill. I don't get a water bill, but my water and sewer usage is built into the rent, but I don't know if it's $5 or if it's $150. So this would lay out a framework so that the renter would know, they would understand what they're paying for their water and sewer usage. So I consider it a transparency thing as well. There's also been situations, and I think the impetus for this bill, quite honestly, is there are some areas around the state of Missouri where municipalities, when there's new construction for apartment buildings or condos or things like that, some municipalities are requiring meters, water meters, to be part of each unit, and those can be very, very expensive. One of the examples, so a building that contained 150 units, it was going to increase the cost of the building by about $500,000. So I just want to make sure we're cognizant of the impact that requiring sub-meters on each unit could have on the overall cost, because those are all things that get baked into the ultimate cost of the rental. So I think if we could figure out a way to manage this in a fiscally responsible way, it could help keep rent a little bit lower and more affordable for folks.
Anybody, any other questions? Seeing none. How many people want to testify on this bill in favor or against? Oh, okay. First person in favor, please come forward.
April Landbauer, we are for it, and I'm here to represent the St. Louis Apartment Association. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. So right now, if I could use the senator's apartment she just mentioned, there's 4 or 5 people there, say 4 or 5 apartments, they have 1 meter. How would this change that? Would they just be forced to tell the landlord to say, I've got 5 units, my water bill is $400, you figure it out, what part is yours? It's built in the rent. How would that change that situation?
I think what she's saying, it would just spell out how it is written so that I think a lot of times it is spelled out. I don't think renters always read how it is, but it would make sure that that landlords have to have it written, that and make it clear it would standardize how whatever the formula is. There's 2 different ways. There's either a formula based on the square, it's either the square footage or the number of bedrooms, or each apartment has a sub-meter on it. Okay. And most of the times we use a third-party billing service, and there's an administrative fee. But nobody makes any money out. Nobody profits from it, and and we also want to make sure that a lot of this too is for new construction. It makes it more cost effective for everyone involved, especially the renter. Instead of the water company going in and metering every meter, for us to have a company to come in and do it and bill us, have the water company go ahead and put their master meters in, and then us have a company come in and do the sub-metering. Because it backs up move-ins, move-outs, and also, like the gentleman from from ARPSET in the last, people can't get in because they haven't paid their water bills. Like, we can't shut off anybody's utilities. So if people get behind in rent, we can't turn off their water. We have to, they have their water until the sheriff comes to change the locks. They still have water. So we're the water company. If they don't pay their bill, the water company can come and turn the water off. So, and on the weekends, they can't, they don't have the water in their name. The water company's not open, so that, we can't get the water turned on to get the resident moved in. So there's just a lot of,
Questions for Mr. Meadows? Seeing none, thank you very much. Oh, you do? Sorry.
You've been
Senator
moving
May.
so fast. Yeah. So basically, it differs per municipality, doesn't it?
it does, not
Yeah,
every.
because in St. Louis City, I know that the water has to be in the name of the person that owns the building. So for small landlords, it's not like, you give the tenant, the water bill, because it has to be in your name. So naturally, the tenant pays the water and the sewer. I mean, not the tenant, the owner of the building pays the water and the sewer. And it's public information because they bill per room.
Right. So there's some municipalities in some parts of Missouri that have gone in and they've made the developers put a separate meter on each unit, and it's become very hard whenever it's an extra cost because it can 500 up to, I mean, depending on the number of units, it's a cost that they weren't thinking when they developed the properties.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's passed on to the renters. But it's also renting. It's a problem because they're not open on the weekends. So, like I believe that O'Fallon is one of them. So the renters have to go to the water company. They have to apply for the water. Somebody has to go and turn it on. They have to turn it off. So that it becomes an obstacle to get the water turned on before they can even sign the lease to move in.
So that's basically, we're talking about commercial.
No, apartments. No, I'm talking about apartments.
I know, but I'm saying basically that's on a larger scale. When I'm talking about, you're talking about units of what more? Because I'm looking at two families or single family rentals. So say, for instance, if you have homes that you're renting, that's single family, how are we protecting those individuals in the bill? Meaning that they're not, right.
Oh, if it's a single family, that would be,
right.
They would just know how much water they're using.
They would know how much, right, they
Right.
would get the bill, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
They would get a copy of their bill. That would be,
They would.
so
Thank you.
I don't know if that changes that, if it has to stay in the landlord's name, or if that is a choice. The bill doesn't state that. So I guess that would be still a choice. I mean,
Yeah.
like the owner of my company chooses to still pay the water and the sewer for all the residents. So what this is saying is it's not forcing the tenants to have the water in their name. So like
Right.
O'Fallon forces the tenants to have it in their name.
Okay, absolutely.
So that's
I like
it's
that
all about
better.
choice.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Next person in favor, please come forward.
Thank you.
Good morning once again, members of the committee. Mr. Chairman, my name is Arnie C. A.C. Dinoff, State Public Advocate. Thank you. And I'm in favor of SB 1471. This is a great consumer protection bill. I'm a resident of the city of O'Fallon. We own and operate a public utility, not-for-profit. We bring in enough money to pay for capital improvements and pay for the operations, staff, labor, pension, and benefits. The property owner has the choice to either put it in the names of the tenants of the apartments, or they can have a one large bill for their entire apartment building or a duplex. So that's a choice. O'Fallon does not force owners of property into doing it into individual tenants. So that, I believe, in my opinion, is incorrect. In St. Charles County, we have a public supply water district number 2. There was an apartment building where the apartment dwellers, 343 units. It's called the Prairie Development in the city of Darden Prairie. They wanted one bill. They were going to pay the entire water bill as the property owner. For some reason, Public Supply Water District number 2, which its board members paid themselves $25,000 salary. Basically, it's over $2,000 in meeting fees per month for a half an hour to 45-minute meeting. They forced its developer, which was a bad economic development, is bad for economic development, to put in $2 million of individual meters for each apartment at this complex, which in return, that property owner is going to pass that $2 million on to the tenants who will occupy those apartment buildings. And I feel it was totally inappropriate, totally illegal, and wrong of Public Water District number 2 to authorize or to force that onto a private developer. This prevents apartment complexes from taking advantage and charging 15, 20, 30% with no cap in sight. We have a Columbia-based firm, father and son, who take tax credits from the legislature to provide senior and disability apartment housing in O'Fallon, St. Charles County, and throughout the state. But yet they take that water bill and they tack on another 20 to 30% increase in that water bill. So they're using it as a profit center. And so they've been called about that. There's been complaints to the Missouri Attorney General's office. And I don't know if they're still doing that practice, but it's wrong and it needs to end. There shouldn't be a profitability over sewer and water rates and other utilities offered by apartment dwellers or apartment complexes. That should be part of that fee. Let's see here. I think that there needs to be, there will be no longer allowed to charge additional profit centers on the water and sewer bills, and I think that's very important. For those reasons, I support SB1471. It's about time that somebody had the gumption to stand up for Missouri residents who live in apartments and who should control their own destiny in terms of not being taken advantage of for added fees and added profit margins. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Questions, Friday? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Anybody else in favor of this bill? Anybody in opposition? How many people are in opposition? Nobody. It's a perfect bill. Senator, anybody for information purposes? Okay, come on up. Sorry, I almost overlooked you again.
Kid Franklin with Missouri American Water. Again, we are really appreciative of the senators for, we've seen some of these issues in St. Louis City and County, so I appreciate your leadership on this bill. That's really great. All we're doing is just reviewing the bill from operational purposes. I am getting educated more on meters and how they work, so I'll be glad to take any questions, but I am not an expert. I can get the answer and get back with you if they are. But we're just
I've been waiting for you or somebody like you. I want to ask you a question. You've got an apartment building with 6 units built in the 40s, 30s, whatever. It's got a 3/4-inch water line coming in, hits a meter in the basement, and single pipe going upstairs. That pipe's going up to every floor, teeing off and going to every apartment, every kitchen, every stool, every bathroom. Where are you going to put a meter on that? How are you going to put individual meters on that unless you tear out a wall where it comes into the apartment and put something right there? I don't understand how they're going to retrofit these things.
Yeah, that's why I have to get clarification. I'm more familiar with the newer ones, the AMIs, so that's what I'm saying. But in essence, there is a method to do that, and there are readings that we have in place for that. So, like I said, I can walk you through, be glad to visit with you all on that.
Okay.
But that's another thing that we want to make sure from an operational standpoint, especially with the shutoffs, how does that work?
Okay.
How do we let people know
Well, I just know
that?
usually these pipes are all inside walls, and it's very difficult, very expensive to get to them and change things.
Well, that's what I was, yeah, and that's what the senator is saying, to the flexibility of the bill for that. We just want to make sure we can comply, make sure that our whole operations can really respond to that. But we certainly applaud the effort because we've seen some of these issues, again, in St. Louis County, the big headlines from a couple of years ago. So we know that this will probably help.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I want a quick question. So, the key is, when you're talking about water usage, how do you measure water usage in the first place? That's the key question.
Yeah, basically it's gallons per. So like my house, I know how many gallons I use. Probably between average person is and get 4,000 gallons. My son takes a lot of showers.
So is that a meter is that a meter telling you looking at your meter, you're saying you use this number of gallons or this number?
And for me in my household, we can actually see it because we have the newer meter, so we can actually pull it up online and see how much we're spending, and do those things with that. So that's from a customer standpoint. That's how.
But what about them homes that was built in 1930 and?
That's why I have the clarification on, because I think they actually have to physically go inside and read that meter from time to time. And again, I know that was an issue during the COVID because it was COVID, so we were trying to accommodate and do those things. But those homes, absolutely.
But some of those homes don't have meters.
Right.
They don't have meters, so they do it based on rooms.
Okay, I see what you're going with this. Because I used to live in the city. So in the county, it's different.
I know.
My city days, yes, we have meters in the county.
Right.
My city days, they go by the formula that they have. So
absolutely.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions? So you're in your home. If your son goes to take a shower, you can look at the meter. When he gets done, you can look again and know how much water.
Yeah, the 15-year-old takes 2-hour showers, and the 11-year-old, I'm not sure he takes one. So
it balances out. All right, thank you. Any other questions for Ken? Seeing none. Anybody else for information purposes? Senator, do you have any closing remarks?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for your indulgence in hearing this bill. I think, what I've learned from your questions is, older buildings, we have to have flexibility. There's a big difference between new construction and what the owner's options are versus a house that's 100 years old and has 6 units. So that's why within this legislation there's flexibility over the types of billing methods available to the building owner or to the landlord.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That will conclude the hearing on this bill, whatever it is, and that will conclude this hearing. Thank you for being here.